The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
This is KBCC 89.5 FM, Tracy, California, Peace and Justice Network of San Joaquin.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS The Voice of Stockton or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and may the force be with you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first annual Phonebooth Star Wars special.
Yep.
Fantastic. I am very excited for today's episode, my friend.
I am very excited too.
Yeah.
Kind of wish they could have waited like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Anyways, my name is Ed Heitman, and joining me in the studio, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Brian Rodriguez.
There's a lot this week.
There is a lot this week. Now, the reason why we're doing the Star Wars special today, as opposed to May the 4th be with you and whatnot, is because we finally got the trailer to Star Wars Episode 9, dubbed The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, not only that, but we have news on the series going forward. We have news on the Disney Plus shows. We have video games. We have VR series. We've got a whole bunch to talk about because this weekend is Star Wars Celebration.
Perfect Star Wars celebration, and I honestly cannot wait to get started.
Yep.
But first, as always, with Phone Booth tradition, we have to begin with the weekly recap. And in this segment, we like to go over a little bit of the news that has happened within the week and kind of give our little bit of an analysis on it. Now, Brian, would you like to take it away with the first topic, my friend?
Sure. Disney has finally detailed their Disney Plus streaming service. The service will be launching on November 12th at a price point of $7 a month or $70 for a year, which is surprisingly cheap considering Netflix is up to, I think, about $15 or $16 a month now.
Yeah, it's a fairly cheap price for most streaming services.
Yeah. Along with the service reveal was confirmation of several Marvel shows we've actually talked to you about earlier, including Loki, which is confirmed to be starring Tom Hiddleston. We've got the confirmation of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, an animated What If series, and the Scarlet Witch Vision series called WandaVision.
Such a bizarre name.
I really hope it's a placeholder. Now, it is rumored that all the stars from the movies will be reprising their roles in the series, but so far Tom Hiddleston is the only one to be confirmed.
Now, I don't know about you, but it kind of feels like, aside from Star Wars, they're really hoping that people want to subscribe to Disney Plus strictly for the Marvel content, you know?
For their original content for the service, yeah, it seems like the shows they're going to have at launch are The Mandalorian, which is the Star Wars show they've been working on from Jon Favreau, as well as I believe Loki is going to be there at launch, but I'm not 100% on the Marvel titles. But what else they're going to have is they're going to have every Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars movie at launch, as well as all the first 30 seasons of The Simpsons and The Mandalorian.
30? Wait, The Simpsons?
Yeah, because remember the Fox Marvel deal just finished? So now they own The Simpsons.
That's right, the Disney-Fox merger. I forgot about that. Whenever I think about that merger, I mean, I think about The Simpsons, sure, but I kind of forgot that they'd be featuring on the service. I kind of hope it's not an exclusive, though.
It will be the exclusive streaming platform. We don't know about airing on TV. I think that's going to remain there. They'll still air on Fox.
Okay, yeah, because I know that the channel FX has the Every Simpsons Ever marathon, where like just days out the week they'll just have a whole schedule of just nonstop Simpsons episodes from multiple seasons and everything. So
yeah, I don't know if that will continue or what the plans for Simpsons on TV are. We just know that like currently the Simpsons are on Hulu, but once Disney Plus launches, I'm assuming that'll be done.
Ah, okay, fair enough. On to the next topic. Now, Twitch has partnered with rock band developer Harmonix to release Twitch Sings, a free karaoke game with close to 2,000 songs at launch.
Yeah.
And of course, Harmonix is known for the very popular game Rock Band, which rivaled Guitar Hero for quite a while until Guitar Hero Live kind of, in my honest opinion, kind of flopped a little bit upon its release.
Yeah, the entire, real plastic guitar game thing, it sort of died out for a while there because it was expensive to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got Guitar Hero Live and Rock Band... What?
5.
Rock Band... Was it Rock Band 5?
4.
4?
4.
Some new Rock Band, and neither of them did very well. I think they've both shut down at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it is good to see that Harmonix is still doing things in the realm that they know, the music game genre. So the game is free. It does connect automatically with your Twitch account, so you don't need any sort of third-party software like OBS to stream it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe it released today.
It released today.
Yeah, I believe that it was just sort of surprise released, which is neat.
That's interesting, though, because, with karaoke games, it's always been kind of a hit-or-miss thing, I mean, when they finally introduced the microphone aspect to Rock Band, that was a huge game changer, because, in my honest opinion, it kind of felt like you only really heard of karaoke games before Rock Band in, imported Eastern games, because over there, karaoke is a lot more popular than it is here in the U.S.
Yeah, really, karaoke was just, karaoke games where you'd rent a karaoke machine and do it with your friends. That was...
Yeah. And then we had Rock Band, and then at one point in time we had Def Jam Superstar, which was also a karaoke game, focused more on the hits from Def Jam records and whatnot. So honestly, I think it's pretty cool that we're getting another karaoke game because some people like myself, just occasionally want to sing a song on the game,
Yeah, and I do like that it's not quite 2,000, but it's close to that many songs at launch. So that's a good amount of content, and they have said they plan to add more.
Oh, yeah. A large bulk of content is always important for a music game to succeed. One of the reasons why people were so interested in playing Guitar Hero Live was the fact that it was going to have a constant flow of new songs to play and things like that. So a large selection I do think is very beneficial to its success. And I really hope that this game does well in the markets.
Yeah.
Anyways, on to the next little bit of news.
Oh, great. Elizabeth Moss has officially been cast in the Invisible Man movie, possibly replacing Johnny Depp. We're not sure at this point.
We have to emphasize the possibility.
Because even reports that are saying, oh, she is replacing it, seem to sort of hedge their bets at the end, saying she will be starring, at least in the Invisible Man movie. So here's a little bit of backstory. In the Dark Universe, monster movie cinematic universe that is off to a fantastic start, I must say.
Oh yeah, everybody loves that Mummy movie with Tom Cruise in it, where it just randomly went into the city for some reason.
Yeah, or Dracula Untold. Remember when that was going to be the start of the universe?
Does anybody really remember Dracula Untold?
No.
Of course.
No.
Of course nobody does.
So anyway, it was announced there was going to be this wide swath of monsters, including Johnny Depp as the Invisible Man. Now, Johnny Depp, for various reasons we're not going to go into here, has sort of become persona non grata in Hollywood. So it was widely speculated that they may replace him. So it's not clear if Elizabeth Moss is replacing him as the Invisible Man or Invisible Woman, as the movie will probably not be called due to Marvel. But it's possible they'll do the same thing they did in The Mummy, where there's a regular person as the main character, and then the monster or person is the villain, and then at the end they become, Tom Cruise became the Mummy at the end, which I don't... But
I didn't really understand that either.
That movie was just so much of...
so
much of something.
The Mummy kind of bugged me, though, because that was also the movie that introduced Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So if they do make a movie for that, they'll probably have to retcon that whole thing.
With Russell Crowe, which, I mean, a guy that tries to remain calm but then has an extreme temper that gets the better of him and tends to ruin things, it's pretty good casting for Russell Crowe.
You know what? I have to agree with you there. And I think it's interesting that the Dark Universe is still around. I had to argue with Brian for quite a bit that the Dark Universe is alive. It is not dead like everybody always thinks it is.
Well, we don't know if this movie is going to be part of the Dark Universe. Back in January, they brought in new writers to retool the Invisible Man, or whatever it's going to be now, possibly to take it out of the Dark Universe.
Well, what they seem to have been saying so far about the Dark Universe is that it's not necessarily dead, more so that it's no longer going to be connected. There are going to be films in Dark Universe, but it's not going to be like some major epic Avengers crossover at the end.
They're going for more of a DC approach now, where it's, they all take place in the same universe, but they're not going for the big, interconnected thing.
Yeah, Paul Sturgy commented on our episode. He mentioned that he actually liked Dracula Untold, but he wasn't really interested in The Mummy.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
I do have to admit, Dracula Untold did have a very good take on the, I believe it's taking place around Victorian era.
I believe so. Honestly, I can't remember much about that. It was 5 years ago. I can't remember anything that far back. My brain is fried.
It was a while back, but it was an okay movie, and I believe it still pops up on FX occasionally. They do gather up a good bunch of movies, So, to each their own, It was an okay movie. It wasn't really that bad.
Yeah.
But any Dark Universe movie was better than The Mummy. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, The Mummy was... It was something.
It was really something.
It was something.
Anyways, moving on. Take-Two and Rockstar have finally dropped their suit against the Pinkertons. Now, this is a little topic that we've talked about a few times on our show. You might remember a few months ago we talked about how the Pinkertons had sent a cease and desist to Rockstar over their agency's depiction in Red Dead Redemption 2, demanding royalties. It would appear Rockstar and publisher responded with a countersuit. However, now everything seems to have been resolved.
Yeah,
I can't help but wonder how this has been resolved.
Yeah, all we know is that... Okay, so they got sent the cease and desist, Rockstar responded with a countersuit, and now Rockstar just essentially said, yeah, we're dropping the suit. And that's it. We don't really have anything more than that. Presumably, because this is how these things usually go, there was some sort of, behind closed doors deal, Pinkertons got some money, and this is all just going to go away.
Ooh, we actually got a question from somebody watching our show. Doug Vigil commented asking us what our opinions are on the movie Venom.
Venom, I actually have yet to see Venom. I've seen clips of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing, and I really want to rectify that at some point.
I actually got to watch it because it's one of those films that got that was able to be played on FX at the moment. Oh. Yeah. By the way, the poster seems to be dangling a little bit up there. Vader has fallen, ladies and gentlemen. Vader has fallen.
Second time.
But anyways, I got to watch Venom when it came out on FX. I have to admit it was a good buddy superhero film, which I can't really say has been shown really in movies so far. We've gotten the whole aspect of like superheroes coming together as like a family unit in order to deal with stuff, but with Venom we got to see more of like a friendship going on between Eddie and the symbiote,
which is good. I've heard that's a great thing about the comics is the sort of the buddy relationship. It's Venom's less of a villain and more of a second half to Eddie.
Yeah, when I was watching the movie I couldn't help but see Venom. He acted a lot more like Drax did in Guardians of the Galaxy. He was tough, but he also had a really crude sense of humor, But yeah, that was our take on it. Anyways, going back to this whole Rockstar and Pinkertons thing, man. We've had a lot of lawsuits going on this year, it seems.
There are a lot of lawsuits in the game industry, and most of them are kind of weird ones like this where, it's announced that the lawsuit's happening, and then we hear nothing about it until lawsuit over now.
Yeah, the biggest one I think we've mentioned so far, I think this year at least, was the whole incident between CD Projekt Red and the creator of the Witcher series, huh?
Oh yeah, the Andrzej Sapkowski. I believe that one was also settled at some point, but I don't remember if they ever said how much.
They never said how much, but they did mention that the whole thing kind of came down to an agreement, and there was some settlement eventually distributed, but we never received info on that, I suppose. And
most of these things are private affairs, and we can't expect full information about them because it's two private parties doing business at a certain point.
Yeah, at some point in time, you gotta stick our nose out of it.
Yep.
Anyways, you go ahead and take over the next little bit of news, my friend.
This next one is kind of small, but Sony has finally given the players the ability to change their PlayStation username, or ID, or whatever you want to call it. For pretty much its entire existence, once you got a PSN ID, that was what you were called. You couldn't change it at any point. And now they've added a system pretty much identical to Microsoft's for Xbox, where you get a free name change once, and then after that it's about $10 to change your name.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome that we finally get to change our PSN name because, funny story, I was an idiot in high school.
Really?
I was a real class clown. I really liked trying to say something stupid in order to get a good chuckle out of people. So I thought it'd be a smart idea to have my PSN name be Lord Chucklebutt. And then I forgot the password to my PSN account, so I had to open a new email and get a new PSN account under the name the guy known as Eddie. But it's still out there, and you know what's worse? That is the name I am stuck with on Apex Legends. So I'll hop in for matchmaking, and people will just join with Lord Chucklebutt. They probably expected some snarky 5-year-old behind the computer, and it's not. But yeah, you know what? It's awesome. I'm glad that we finally get the option to do the name change because of instances like that where you look back at it and it's like, yeah, I need a name change.
Yeah.
I just need a name change.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
quality of life thing that it's a little surprising it took them this long to have it, but I'm glad they finally do.
It really was weird. You'd think that option would have popped up around the PS3 era. I'm kind of surprised it took them so long for them to do this option.
Yeah.
Especially because the PS3 was around the time that that online first-person shooters became like very, very popular. So that would have really been the instant where people want to change their names,
Yeah.
But oh well. But that was it for the weekly recap, ladies and gentlemen. And now it's time for us to enter our next little segment that we like to call Trailer Talk. Now, we only have one trailer today because of this special episode, this special celebration. If there were other trailers that you wanted us to talk about, just bring it up. We'll talk about it in next week's episode. Easy peasy. But for today, we just want to talk about the trailer for Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of the Skywalkers. Brian, would you like to take it away, start off first?
Yes. So this trailer was a lot emotionally, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's
very grandiose.
Yeah. So we start with Rey on some sort of desert planet. We don't know if it's Tatooine or Jakku or some new terrible desert planet in the Star Wars universe. And she is facing down Kylo Ren's ship, which is speeding towards her. We get this amazing scene of her running away from it for a second before doing a backflip and presumably landing on top of it. It cuts away before we get to see the end of it.
It kind of looked like she was going to do a backflip and slice through the ship with her lightsaber.
Yeah, she does activate her lightsaber, so it seems like that is the implication there. Mm-hmm. And I note it's Kylo Ren's ship, and we get this brief scene of someone's hands at the controls of it, but we don't actually see if it's Kylo Ren himself. So possibly someone else, someone with a similar ship.
It could be a possibility. Star Wars trailers have been very known to try and mislead us here and there to keep the film a bit more interesting. Mm-hmm. But one thing that we can say is that we are definitely excited for Episode 9 when it comes out.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of people get the feeling that The Last Jedi was it felt kind of slow in the aspect of most Star Wars films. This one looks like it's cranking it back up to action that we hadn't really seen since The Force Awakens, honestly.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got a few interesting scenes. We've got some of the main characters, Poe, C-3PO, I believe Finn was there too, in the sand speeders that Jabba owned in Return of the Jedi, the sort of smaller ones where Han was about to be thrown to the Sarlacc. We see them riding in those and getting shot at. We get this very interesting...
Vader has fallen again.
You know what? He can stay down there for a second. We get this very interesting shot of the characters on some planet, we don't know which one it is, looking at a piece of the destroyed Death Star. And I don't know if we have confirmation of which Death Star it is, but you can very obviously see it's part of the superstructure. Yeah. It has the dent where the laser would be. It's sitting in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Which is apparently not an entirely new concept for this film, because some of the concept art for The Force Awakens actually had a piece of concept art of the Emperor's throne room underwater, which could be a point to this being part of the second Death Star, because that's the one with the Emperor's throne room in it.
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting that we got to see the Death Star in this trailer, because I kind of had the feeling that they were going to try and sweep that whole thing under the rug, especially when The Force Awakens introduced the Star Destroyer, the giant planet, yeah.
Yeah, the Star Killer base.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that's as close as we're getting to Force Unleashed anymore.
Yeah. Don't remind me.
Yeah, and... there is one more thing that's vitally important, because as we're looking at the Death Star, we get this line of, nothing ever really stays dead, and then we get the Emperor's laugh. And it is confirmed to be the Emperor in the captions of the video, and by the fact that at the panel this was being shown at Star Wars Celebration, Ian McDiarmid, who has played the Emperor in every film so far, apparently showed up on stage at the moment of the laugh. Which I think is just an awesome reveal, you know?
Yeah, that is pretty epic. And, you know, I'm kind of surprised that they decided to bring back Emperor Palpatine, given the fact that they really kind of, in my opinion, it kind of felt like they really wasted potential with Snoke's, with what happened to Snoke in the previous film.
I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of connection between Palpatine and Snoke. I'm not sure what it will be, but they're in the expanded universe, which I know is no longer canon, but anyway, Palpatine was able to transfer his soul into various other living vessels, usually clones of himself, but occasionally it was in other people's bodies that he could take over. So it's presumably, in this new universe, he could lie maybe dormant within Snoke, influencing him, trying to rebuild.
That would be interesting. Another thing that was interesting about this trailer was the overabundance of characters and actors that we got to see portrayed within this trailer.
We got to see a lot of them.
Yeah, as we've mentioned previously in other episodes, we will be seeing clips of Carrie Fisher in the movie, which would be amazing to see how that portrays.
Yeah, after her untimely passing, they are using cut footage of her from The Force Awakens, and I believe some cut footage from The Last Jedi to sort of recreate part of her cut plot in this new movie. We see a scene of Carrie Fisher and Rey embracing, and I'm of two minds about this. On the one hand, I'm glad that they're not just writing Leia out, because she's so important to this universe right now. On the other hand, they have to be so careful. They have to be so careful with how they do this, because they are essentially trying to recreate a dead woman.
Yeah, you know, it is risky, but it has potential. We've reached the day and age where movie magic seems to be able to possibly pull that off. You know,
and they are doing this with the permission of Carrie Fisher's family. That was like the first people they went to when they started talking about this to get permission,
which is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. But she wasn't the only Star Wars alumni that we got to see in this trailer. We also, I believe, we got to see Mark Hamill at one point in time.
We didn't ever see him, but Luke was narrating the entire trailer.
Right. But somebody that we did get to see front, bold, and center was Billy D. Williams.
Yep, Lando's back.
Lando is back. What do you think about that?
I think it was amazing. The one scene we saw him in, he was flying the Millennium Falcon with Chewbacca, and I cheered out when I first saw that. I just whooped.
You can't help but just feel nostalgia from the old movies when you see him in the Millennium Falcon with Chewie flying through the, going light speed and everything. It just makes you think of the classic trilogy, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the best part about this new trilogy, is that even though it's wrapping up the saga, it feels so much like a really well put memorial to the original trilogy. You know?
Yeah. This is the final film in the Skywalker saga. The one that started all the way back in Phantom Menace chronologically, not, in order of release anyway. But this is going to be the final chapter. This is the end. And I think it's a good thing, because there are going to be more movies. There are 2 new trilogies in development, but they will not be focusing on the Skywalker family and all their nonsense. There's the giant nonsense family that ruins everything.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. But that was our trailer talk for today's episode, and now it's time for us to get into our discussion piece. Now, of course, our main discussions are going to be surrounding Star Wars, as it is our special. Now, we were talking just a few seconds ago about how this movie is going to be the end of the Skywalker saga and the end of that whole phase of Star Wars, and anything that happens afterwards is going to take place in its own continuity. Now, it should be noted, however, that once Episode 9 is done, there's going to be a hiatus in the films before we see another one in the future.
Yes, according to Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, he has said that there will be a break in Star Wars films. We'll still be getting TV shows and things like that, but the films will be going on a hiatus. And he didn't say how long that would be. They've got 2 new trilogies in development, so I assume it will be a short one, but we will not be getting, the annual Star Wars movie as we have been for the last few years, which I think is a good thing, because actually earlier this week, Mark Hamill brought up the idea of Star Wars fatigue, and that we're just getting bombarded with so much Star Wars content that eventually we're going to get tired, which I think we saw sort of exemplified in Solo, being the first Star Wars movie to lose money at the box office.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, we've experienced Star Wars fatigue before. I know it's not a very common case issue, but I did notice it for a period of time. A lot of people seem to have suffered Star Wars fatigue around the time that we got the animated Clone Wars series.
Yeah.
Once that dropped. Because there was a lot of lore, a lot of continuity for us to look into, but it also was like the series itself was a major overload of Star Wars. To where, like, when you watched it, sometimes because you were not completely... I mean, of course, the Clone Wars series was for the diehard Star Wars fans, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of planets we didn't get to explore, a lot of lore we didn't get in the films. But then, for certain people who had never really gotten into Star Wars, I could see them as suffering fatigue trying to watch the series, especially in episodes where you don't see any familiar faces at all.
Yeah, it was for the diehard Star Wars fans or the kids that had never really experienced Star Wars before. Which, I mean, it was a kid's series. That was their ultimate goal. But it was also very much... If you were just someone who had seen the movies as a kid and then started watching this as an adult, you might have no idea what was happening in a lot of the episodes.
Most definitely. So I can understand his point that we are experiencing a little bit of fatigue, which, you know what, I can understand that. And to be honest, I am fine with us having a hiatus. I honestly don't really care how long the hiatus would be after this movie, because the trilogy itself was okay. I admit I wasn't the biggest fan of The Last Jedi, but I was still a fan of The Force Awakens, and The Rise of Skywalker looks amazing, you know? So we still have this trilogy to look back at, and we still have the past 6 movies to look at as well.
Yeah.
You know? And when it comes to Star Wars fatigue, that is very true, because movies being released every single year brings us to things like The Phantom Menace. Some people enjoy it. I myself didn't really care too much for it.
I mean, we're probably going to hit Marvel fatigue at some point with just how much there is.
I know. It kind of feels like after Endgame, we're going to be hit with a huge surge of Marvel once Phase 4 begins.
Yeah.
You know, but anyways, would you like to take away the next little topic we have for Star Wars?
Yes. So there is a Star Wars TV series being developed for Disney Plus that is not The Mandalorian. It is based off Cassian Andor, the rebel spy from Rogue One. And it's been in development for a while now. The guy that played Andor in the film will be returning to his role. But another person that will be returning is Alan Tudyk as the voice of K2SO, the droid from Rogue One. Which I think is great, because they had this great buddy dynamic. Mm-hmm. They obviously had a lot of history together. And it's good to see that this won't just be, you know, just Cassian Andor. It also sort of be exploring their dynamic there.
Now, for those of us who might not have had the chance to see Rogue One, a Star Wars story, would you mind giving a little bit of context as to who these characters are?
Okay, so Cassian Andor was a spy for the Rebellion, charged with essentially helping locate the Death Star plans. And K2SO was his co-pilot, partner, droid guy. He was very funny, very snarky. And they essentially worked together as spies for the Rebellion.
Interesting.
Honestly, we didn't get a ton of character development for either because in Rogue One, but hopefully the show will remedy that.
I have to admit I'm looking forward to it, because one thing that most people enjoyed about Rogue One was that it kind of went against the idea of Star Wars fatigue, to where it was a Star Wars and not many people saw it coming, but it was also a very nice breath of fresh air. You know?
It was very different from past Star Wars movies. No Jedi.
No Jedi.
Sort of refreshing. I kind of liked it, because it's nice to see the Star Wars universe without the Jedi nonsense.
Yeah, as much as I enjoy the Jedi, I admit I've always kind of wanted to see a little bit more into the worlds of bounty hunters and just plain rebels. You know, we don't really get that very often in Star Wars. We will have good characters who represent these aspects of the world, but they're always like side characters to the main Jedi or something. So it's nice to hear that some more backstory will be given on side characters coming soon. Anyways, on to the next little topic that we have, and it's about a video game that we had only received a name for back when we had our very special E3 episode.
Yeah?
Yeah, we will be talking about Jedi Fallen Order, a single-player game where we play as Cal, one of the few Jedi to survive Order 66. In case you're not really too familiar with Star Wars lingo, Order 66 was the command given by Emperor Palpatine to get the clones to basically kill off any Jedi that was with them.
Yep.
This is a major contribution to the fall of the Jedi Order that we started to see the after effects of in the original trilogy. You know, and the game will have no multiplayer aspects or microtransactions, even though the term "no microtransactions" is a term that I can't honestly believe in this day and age anymore.
Yeah, this is an EA game. It's being developed by Respawn, but according to Respawn founder Vince Zampella, it will not have any multiplayer. It will not have any microtransactions. It is a single-player story experience, which is kind of hard to believe, given that a few months ago we talked to you about how EA had just canceled another single-player Star Wars story from Amy Hennig because it could not be, you know, turned into a live service microtransaction-filled, constantly monetizable mess, really.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to believe that they would cancel that, but allow this. Maybe this one was too far along in development before they made the decision. Who knows?
Perhaps it was the fact that it was announced, like, just out of nowhere at E3. Like, the guys didn't even seem to have been ready to really announce it. Like, he just got put on the spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a few years from now we learned that, yeah, they weren't really ready to announce it. That was just sort of sprung on them at the last minute.
Right.
Kind of like what happened with Anthem.
Yeah, you know.
Anyway, this is not about Anthem. This is not even really about EA. This is about Star Wars.
Yes.
Refocus.
Now, we finally received the trailer today for Jedi Fallen Order. So if you've not seen the trailer yet, I highly suggest that you go and watch it right now.
Yeah.
Because the story, let me just clarify that this story is another one that takes place within the timeline, but isn't like immediately tied to any familiar faces in the Star Wars universe. And this is a Star Wars game featuring an original character that I haven't honestly been genuinely excited for since we finally got to see Starkiller in The Force Unleashed. You know, this seems to be a completely new story focused only on him.
Yeah, there does appear to be a crew of characters that he works with, but this does seem to be focused on him. We get to see a lot of neat elements from the, you know, expanded Star Wars universe. There are new planets. The Inquisitors from the Rebels TV show and, you know, associated comics that haven't appeared in the films yet show up as apparently the main antagonists.
Yeah. Unfortunately, however, we've not really been presented with any official gameplay yet to Fallen Order. What we had received instead was more of a cinematic trailer. And, of course, with all cinematic trailers, we can't necessarily trust everything that is presented to us. But what we can say so far is that it does seem to be a very impressive-looking trailer.
One thing to note is that it appears the game will be running in the Unreal 4 engine as opposed to EA's much maligned proprietary engine, Frostbite. Now, a lot of developers at EA have complained about Frostbite because it was designed for single-player or multiplayer FPS shooters. Anyway, and it was really designed to make things look pretty, but not run too much complication at the same time. So when EA started making, you know, BioWare use it for their next Dragon Age RPG, there was a ton of problems behind the scene because that was not what the engine was developed for.
Yeah, it wasn't really designed for RPGs like Dragon Age. It was more intended for games like Battlefield, where things are more focused on realism as opposed to fantasy.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to hear that this is going to be on a different engine. You know, Unreal's got some pretty good reputation from what I've heard.
Yeah, Unreal. It's developed by Epic, which it's been one of the points of contention in the Epic Games Store. But it's a good engine. It's a good widely used engine. It's not perfect because no widely used engine is, but it's sort of the industry standard at a certain point. If you don't have your own proprietary engine, you're probably going to be using Unreal.
It seems like it, yes. Anyways, I'd like to take away the next little bit of news we got for Star Wars.
Another game series thing that was announced was Vader Immortal, which is a VR episodic interactive story. The first episode will be releasing in May, but you play as a smuggler who has been captured by Darth Vader and taken to his palace on Mustafar, where it is discovered you have Force abilities.
And I gotta admit, Vader Immortal looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, the main, at least for the first episode, you will be lightsaber training within Vader's palace on Mustafar, and apparently there will be a high degree of explorability to the palace, and a lot of depth to the lightsaber combat. From what we've heard, there will be a training mode where you can earn new lightsaber crystals, things like that. It's interesting. I'm disappointed because it's only coming to the Oculus VR systems, the Oculus Quest, the Oculus Rift. And that's disappointing. I hope at some point it comes to maybe PlayStation, because I believe PlayStation does actually have its own exclusive Star Wars VR thing.
I think so.
Yeah, some sort of Rebel Fighter.
Yeah.
That has an incredibly long title.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I can say is that Star Wars seems to be a series that works really well with interactive game mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a while back there was the cringy Star Wars Connect for the Xbox 360.
Ah, yeah.
You know, where they had the ability to play Just Dance as Darth Vader and Han Solo.
Yes, with
You know?
the Star Wars parody songs.
I'm Han Solo.
Yep.
Oh goodness. But you know, when it comes to the whole aspect of like lightsaber training, that is something that works very well with VR. Aside from just Star Wars itself, it's a game that's fit because of games that involve swordplay in itself. It seems any VR game that involves swordplay seems to be a very successful game because the mechanics usually try their best to be very in-depth. You know,
Yeah.
you're really there in the battle. And one thing that Star Wars fans love more than anything is a really good epic lightsaber battle. I mean, we've all had those moments where we were little kids in elementary school and we would have lightsaber fights with our friends in the sidewalk, you know, trying to stay out the street and everything, you know. And this is basically what it's going to be. And I do admit, I love the fact that this is an interactive story and not a VR game.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and there are very obvious gameplay elements, but they are calling it an interactive story instead of just a video game.
Right. I think it does it a better service in that method.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was our overall Star Wars news. Okay, so we have two discussion pieces themselves surrounding Star Wars that we would like to talk about before we wrap things up. We have at least time for one topic here. We would like, given that Episode 9 is coming out and it is going to be the end of the 9-part Skywalker saga, it is only fair for us to try our best to try and backtrack a little bit through the major events that have happened ever since Anakin Skywalker was first discovered around the time he did that pod race. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to need you to help me out a little bit with this, Brian, because as much as I have watched the films, my memory in regards to the prequel trilogies don't really sit that well.
Okay, so let's go through the basics. Anakin Skywalker is a magic baby. Doesn't have a father, born of the Force, whatever you want to call it, midichlorians, who cares?
He's a chosen one.
Yes. So, Magic Baby, born as a slave. But then Magic Baby starts pod racing. Ooh, good for Magic Baby. Of course, then the Jedi come to the planet where Magic Baby is, and they need a part. So the Jedi decide to place all their faith inside the magic pod racing baby that they've just met. And it works out. And then it turns out that the Magic Baby is, in fact, a super Magic Baby. He has so many Magic Baby particles. Oh, you don't even know. But oh, the Jedi don't want to train the Magic Baby because he's 10 and not an infant that they've kidnapped. That is a thing the Jedi did in canon. They kidnapped babies. So they decide, you know what? Let's not do anything with this super powerful Magic Baby. Let's just throw him back into the world because that'll probably work out super well. But Qui-Gon Jinn says, you know what? No, I'll train Magic Baby because it's smarter than just throwing Magic Baby out into the wild. Because why would we do that? Why is that a good idea in any way? How has our order survived this long anyway?
Now, we would like to point out that Qui-Gon Jinn was the master to Obi-Wan Kenobi, who would eventually grow to become Anakin Skywalker's master.
Yes. So Qui-Gon Jinn decides to take on the training of Magic Baby, but then Qui-Gon Jinn gets killed by an angry red cactus, and then Obi-Wan kills the cactus back and decides to take over Anakin's training.
The cactus being Darth Maul, of course, the one character with very few lines that we had gotten that, as with most Star Wars characters that don't say any lines at all, suddenly became very, very popular in the lore.
Yes. So then we move on to Episode 2. Where Magic Baby is now a magic teenager, but we're still going to call him Magic Baby because of his general temperament throughout the entire film.
Lots and lots of complaining. This isn't fair, that isn't fair, blah, blah, blah.
Yes. So Magic Baby has turned into a creepy stalker, stalking this queen he met in Episode 1 because he's in love with her. And for some reason, this makes her fall in love with him, even though he's really just a creepy stalker. Don't know why that worked. Kind of creepy. Anyway, Magic Baby saves the queen's life. and takes her off to Naboo to protect her, where he complains about sand for a while. So then they decide, you know what? We're not going to stay on this safe planet where someone, hide from someone who's trying to kill the queen. We're going to go to Tatooine to meet his family and discover that Magic Baby's mother has been kidnapped by the Sand People. I don't remember their actual names.
I forget their names as well. But anyways, Sand People.
Yes. So Magic Baby goes off to find his mother and discovers her just in time to watch her die. So Magic Baby gets angry, throws a temper tantrum, and slaughters all the Sand People, including, and he's very specific about this, the women and children. They couldn't have just made it, a general slaughter. No, it had to be, killing children too, which will become a theme for Magic Baby in the future.
Mm-hmm. Because we need you to know, young Magic Baby turns out to be evil magic overlord for the next 3 episodes after Revenge of the Sith.
Yes. So Magic Baby flies off with Queen Lady. They get captured by a bunch of droids and bug people. There's a fight. The Clone Wars begin. Who cares? Moving on to episode 3. The Clone Wars are over now. No more Clone Wars. So Magic Baby is now married to the Queen and is still acting like a creepy stalker. But it turns out the Queen is pregnant. And now Magic Baby starts having bad dreams about the Queen dying. So he starts looking for a way to make her immortal. So Magic Baby meets with his friend, what's his name? He's the Supreme
Chancellor Palpatine.
Yes,
the guy who eventually becomes Emperor Palpatine.
Yes, the Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, Palpatine, who is so very obviously screamingly evil that the Jedi just have to be... They're so incompetent. The level of incompetence from the Jedi, they sort of deserved what they get. So the Chancellor turns Magic Baby evil, and they go off to slaughter the Jedi, including, and this is very important, Magic Baby slaughters a bunch of other less Magic Babies. Yeah. A lot of child killing from this guy we're supposed to sympathize with. A lot of child killing. So then Magic Baby goes off to a lava planet, where he's followed by Obi-Wan and his wife. And for some reason, Magic Baby freaks out and starts choking his very obviously pregnant wife until she passes out. So Magic Baby and Obi-Wan have a fight where Obi-Wan gets the high ground, but Magic Baby says, screw that.
You underestimate my power. That was a direct quote.
Yes. So Magic Baby jumps at Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan, having the high ground, chops off all his limbs and dumps him in lava.
And he walks away because he has the high ground.
Yes.
That's he doesn't need to save Anakin. He has the high ground.
So Magic Baby is found by the former Chancellor, now Emperor, who puts him in the Darth Vader suit, but Emperor is mad, so he makes it so the suit hurts Magic Baby, and tells Magic Baby that he killed his wife, which he did. He is directly responsible for that, no matter what they try to say, a broken heart, or whatever, after she gives birth. So Magic Baby's wives give birth to twins. They'll come back and be important later. Magic Baby is now Magic Evil Overlord Darth Vader. Ooh. And that's the end of the prequel trilogy.
Now, we talked very lightly about the prequel trilogy, but there is a reason why. Because the prequel trilogy, while some people they do like certain bits and aspects of it, while most people in the Star Wars community admit the prequel trilogies could have been handled much, much better. And the reason why it wasn't really handled so well was because of the level of control George Lucas had over this prequel trilogy.
Yeah. George, if you look back at some of the interviews about the development process for the original trilogy, you'll realize that the movie sort of succeeded in spite of George Lucas and not because of him. A lot of the producers tended to stop his more ridiculous ideas. But then during Return of the Jedi, they apparently dropped the ball and we got Ewoks.
Yes. But that was in exchange for preventing George Lucas from having a scene where Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia have like an intimate romantic scene, even though they are siblings.
Yes.
This was a real thing that George Lucas tried to get done.
And this would have been after they knew they were siblings. It's not like an Empire where there's that kiss scene where it's uncomfortable because they're siblings afterwards, but they didn't, so it's kind of okay.
None of it was okay.
None of what happened was okay, but it is less horrible. But
the thing is that the people who were telling George Lucas what to do and working on the original trilogy realized that not all of his ideas were perfect. But because of how successful the original trilogy was, as soon as George Lucas had the ability to work on the prequel trilogies, it seemed as if people idolized him so much that nobody wanted to really hold him back on ideas. So with the Phantom Menace and leading up to Revenge of the Sith, he had total control over everything. He was able to do whatever he wanted, and that led to things like Qui-Gon Jinn. The worst lightsaber battle ever in Revenge of the Sith. If you ever actually look into videos talking about how a fight scene is analyzed and you look back at this scene, it is so much worse than what you originally thought that it was. And we lost Samuel L. Jackson in episode 2, and I know that has nothing to do with George Lucas, but I was still bummed out at that.
Oh no, we lost Samuel L. Jackson in episode 3.
Oh yeah, it was 3. It was 3, right? But
yes.
Man,
I mean, we didn't even talk about the worst thing from the prequels.
Oh God, what we left out Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, that was what I was going for.
We left out Jar Jar Binks. We tried our best to leave out Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
Because that's...
Yeah, I was just sort of focusing on the Skywalker, since that's sort of what we're recapping.
Right.
If you want to, just go watch you've probably already seen the movies, let's be honest. Who hasn't seen the movies at this point? But if you want to recap, go watch the movies. Some of them are good. Like half.
Yeah.
Let's go with about half right now.
Yeah. So, after the whole mess that was the prequel trilogy, we finally begin with the classic trilogy, starting off with Star Wars: A New Hope. Now, this begins the tale of Luke Skywalker, an orphan who lives with his aunt and uncle on a desert planet. He eventually is told to one day look for old Ben Kenobi after coming across an R2-D2 unit, which has a message from Princess Leia saying that old man Obi-Wan is her only hope. Finally discovers the guy to realize that Obi-Wan is a Jedi and that he's going to train Luke in the ways of the Force. Eventually, we come across to the Mos Eisley Cantina, where we get to meet Han Solo alongside his companion Chewbacca. They all form a pact and they all travel out to a distant moon, which is not a distant moon. It is the Death Star, a weapon designed by Darth Vader with the ability to obliterate planets with a single fire. Of course, they get there, a whole fight ensues, Luke loses Obi-Wan in a really anticlimactic way. I just have to point that out.
Yeah.
And then they manage to escape. Now, you'll have to help me out with the next movie, because that was one where a lot of details just kind of flew over my head. It was the one where we finally get to Cloud City, wasn't it?
Yes, okay, so they escape from the Death Star. Death Star gets blown up by Luke using a magic torpedo, even though all physics should have stopped that from happening. Anyway, so we go on to Empire. A few years have passed now, and the rebels are hiding out on Hoth, a terrible, snowy planet full of things that want to murder them. You've got to wonder, would they really be here if they had any other choice? And the answer is no.
No, they're rebels.
Yeah.
They usually with rebels, they kind of have no choice where they have to hide.
So the Empire decides to attack the base with giant metal camels. And the giant metal camels have one fatal weak point, in that if you wrap a rope around them, they fall over.
Not really something you would think about when looking at the major schematics. It sounds like somebody would walk into the room and be like, what if they got tripped by wire wrapped around their ankles? It sounds like that person would just be kicked out of the room, but then it actually happened.
Probably the same person that brought up, maybe we should cover up this hole that leads directly from the outside of our giant space station to the power core.
Yeah.
Maybe we should, I don't know, or even put a twist in there somewhere so that one projectile can't fly in and destroy everything.
Right.
Anyway, so eventually the rebels have to flee from the giant metal camels into space. And Luke decides to go off on his own because he had this weird vision in the snow. So he goes off to Dagobah to meet Yoda. And it turns out Dagobah sucks. It's worse than Hoth. Dagobah is just a giant swamp. It smells terrible, probably. It has gases everywhere. His ship falls into a swamp, and he meets this terrible little frog thing. This frog thing that beats up his robot, steals his food.
Careful, man. You might get attacked by Star Wars fans.
I don't care. This terrible little frog thing. But then it turns out this terrible little frog thing is, in fact, Yoda, the Jedi Master, who's just been acting like a complete jerk. Man. I mean, seriously, who is this dyslexic Muppet to act like this towards people he's just met?
My God.
So Luke and Yoda train together until Luke has to go into a cave. And there just the plot stops completely dead. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. Luke goes into a cave and he fights a vision of Darth Vader. But when he cuts off Darth Vader's head, he discovers it's Luke inside. Which, is still a weird moment that I don't think was done as well as it could have been.
Yeah, it really felt like a Shyamalan twist before Shyamalan's twists were even really a thing.
Yes. So Luke eventually decides to leave Yoda to go save his friends who have gone off to a cloud city and just fallen for one of the most obvious traps ever. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So Luke goes to Cloud City to find his friends, but it turns out Han Solo's been frozen in carbonite and taken off by a bounty hunter, Jango Fett?
Boba.
Boba Fett. I can
Jango was in the prequel, Boba is in the classic.
Okay, I can never remember which one's which. Anyway, so Luke fights Darth Vader, which discovered, dun dun dun, Darth Vader is his father.
And that's not true! It's impossible!
It's impossible. So then Darth Vader chops off his hand and Luke falls in a giant hole. And
Yes.
logically, by any form of physics, the impact he had when he hit the tube at the bottom should have killed him. But nope, he's fine. So he falls out of the hole, and outside of Cloud City, where he's hanging onto this weird antenna thing, he gets rescued. He gets a new robot hand.
The most insane luck, may I add. The fact that there just so happened to have been this random little antenna thing sticking out the bottom of the city, just right there by that hole.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
most insane luck ever.
So the movie ends, Luke's got a new hand, Han Solo's been kidnapped. On to the next one.
Yes.
Now, I believe the official timeline is 3 more years have passed. So
Luke's gotten a new costume change, mind you.
yes, he's got a black outfit now, because, ooh, the darkness inside.
Yes.
So Luke and Leia go to Jabba's palace to rescue Han Solo, and it goes poorly almost immediately. So Luke has to kill a giant evil pig monster by choking it to death with a chain. He and Han Solo are about to get thrown into a giant pit of teeth in the sand that also has a beak for some reason. Though why would it have a beak and teeth? That doesn't make sense evolutionarily. Anyway,
Don't question the Rancor pit. It doesn't make much sense.
Sarlacc. It's the Sarlacc pit.
I always want to say Rancor.
The Rancor was the pig monster.
Right.
So anyway, they managed to escape, kill the Sarlacc, kill Boba Fett,
Yes. Yes.
kill Jabba, and they all escape. Now, honestly, don't really remember what happens in the in-between here, but eventually they end up on Endor, under the second Death Star that's being constructed, and they need to take down a shield generator that's protecting it so they can do exactly what they did in the first movie, except the hole is even bigger this time.
Oh yeah, it's like only 3/4 of the Death Star is even built. So like
Yeah.
when you're flying up there, you see the big old giant hole that hasn't been built yet.
Yeah, and that hole they could only get a torpedo through last time. This time an entire ship can fit through it. But I will give them credit. There were twists and turns in it. So you couldn't have just gotten a straight shot in.
I feel like that's like the most hilarious solution. It's like, if this thing falls into this hole, it could go directly over to our shield core. Should we cover up this hole? No, let's just add a couple of extra right angles. That'll fix it.
But now Luke has done more training with Yoda. Right, that's what happened in the between. He went to go talk to Yoda and ghost Obi-Wan, and Yoda died. Anyway,
Yes.
It's not important. They're all ghosts now. So then it turns out that Leia is Luke's sister, which means that kiss they shared in the previous movie is all kinds of awkward now.
Yes.
But they never really bring it up, which I think is actually for the better.
Yeah.
So now Luke has gone off and gotten captured by Darth Vader and his boss, the Emperor, because he wants to bring Darth Vader back to the light side because he sees the good inside of him. That doesn't work out so well, and eventually Luke gets tortured with lightning by the Emperor, but Darth Vader decides, you know what? This is a good moment to realize I still love my kids. So he lifts the Emperor over his head and throws him in a hole.
Now, of course, this electricity does critical damage to Darth Vader's little operation game going on his chest, so
Yes.
he eventually dies from this, but not before Luke finally gets to see Darth Vader's face underneath this helmet, which I admit doesn't look at all like Anakin, but, I mean, after you've been burned by lava, do you really expect to look the same afterwards?
There were like 30 years in between. They didn't know what they were going to be doing. Let's just accept that. And
Right.
Let's be glad they only digitally reinserted Hayden Christensen into the ghost scene and didn't try to do something with the face.
Right.
So anyway, Death Star blows up. Emperor's gotten thrown into a giant hole, which you gotta question, who built the Emperor's throne platform above this giant hole that's seemingly bottomless? Who built that? Why was that a design choice?
You know, I always questioned that. I kind of questioned the whole construction thing around the Death Star itself, you know. But, talking about the Death Star blowing up, Mallrats actually had me really thinking about that scene, the movie Mallrats. Because you think about it, when the Death Star got blown up, it wasn't just the Empire that was on that ship. It was also the numerous construction workers that were just hired off random planets to build this Death Star.
A lot of times they were slaves. The Empire used slave labor.
Yeah, that makes the whole situation a lot darker.
Yeah.
But anyways, the new trilogy.
Yes. So 30 years after the second Death Star blows up in the exact same way, we have new characters. We have Rey, we have Finn, we have Poe, and we have the new villain, Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. Kylo Ren is dark and emo and has a super lightsaber and loves Darth Vader.
Now, it must be important that the classic trilogy and the new trilogy is taking place after Order 66. An order that was issued by Emperor Palpatine to command all troops under the Empire to eliminate and kill any Jedi that is within sight. Mm-hmm. Because of this, it caused the Jedi Order to completely cripple and go into hiding, which is why Yoda was located on a remote swamp planet in the first place when Luke went over to go train. And during the new trilogy, the Jedi is basically nothing more than a myth at this point in time.
Yes. So I'm gonna preface this with, for The Force Awakens, you can essentially take our description of A New Hope, Episode 4, and replace the word Luke with Rey, and you'll basically have the exact same, plot synopsis. But anyway,
yes.
Rey is an orphan living on a desert planet who finds a droid with instructions telling her to find someone.
Yes.
Okay. So she escapes in the Millennium Falcon and meets up with Han Solo and Chewbacca, and they have this weird side plot where they have to escape this evil tentacle monster that doesn't really ever go anywhere. So they go off to this new planet to meet Maz Kanata, who again is a new character they introduced that doesn't really go anywhere, who has Luke's old lightsaber, and Rey touches it and gets some spooky voices in her head. Spooky voice time.
Now, Rey isn't the only character who has a main story within The Force Awakens. We also follow the story of Finn. Now, Finn doesn't originally have a name. He is a basic issued stormtrooper. They're removed from their family at birth and raised, under the Empire. And Finn happens to be one of the few stormtroopers out of, it seems to be the only stormtrooper, it seems, out of everybody who suddenly realized, wow, us killing people might actually be a bad thing. I might not actually want to be a part of this empire. Mm-hmm. So he defects and goes rogue with the ship that I believe had the BB-8 unit on it.
Yes, he escapes with Poe, and they crash on the desert planet Rey is on, but Poe doesn't make it out of the ship in time, and it sinks into the sand, and Poe is dead, except he's not really. He shows up later with sort of a hand wave, because apparently the actual story behind this is Oscar Isaac, the guy that plays Poe, walked up to J.J. Abrams saying, hey, I'd like to be in more of the movie than just dying suddenly, and J.J. Abrams said, okay. So they just had him reappear magically, really. That's how it happened.
I can't complain. Poe's a good character.
He's a good character, but I do think they maybe could have reshot one of those scenes to make it less like, okay, he's dead. Wait, no, he's not dead. Wait, how did he escape that? Don't worry about it. He's alive now. We're moving on.
Yes. And now, instead of the Empire, we now have the First Order.
Yes, the First Order, which is the Empire, except now they call themselves the First Order. Literally, I think the explanation of the First Order is it's essentially one of Palpatine's contingency plans to ensure the Empire survives in case the Empire falls. Is the First Order is made up of his lieutenants and, right-hand man. And,
right. And it's led by the mysterious General Snoke.
Yeah, our Supreme Leader Snoke. Who's a weird, misshapen flesh man in a bathrobe. And we don't get to see a lot of him in this movie, except he talks to Kylo Ren and berates him. And it turns out Kylo Ren is, the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, so he is continuing the Skywalker lineage.
Yes.
He is new magic baby. He is emo magic baby.
Yes, he is completely obsessed with his grandfather, Darth Vader. In fact, in his living quarters, he actually happens to have a damaged and burned helmet that belonged to Darth Vader after he got electrocuted and killed. So I guess the First Order decided to hold on to that helmet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, eventually we're discovered to the the upgraded version of the Death Star. Now it's an entire planet, and it can obliterate multiple planets at once with a shotgun spread.
Yes, it's charged by sun. It is the Star Killer base, except it doesn't actually kill stars from what we see. It just drains energy from them, and then it kills planets.
Yes, because they realized, the only way we could do better than the Death Star is to make it a planet, and instead of just a laser, let's make it a bunch of lasers.
So then the heroes have to sneak onto Starkiller Base, disable a laser, have a dramatic showdown with Kylo Ren, who kills Han Solo, his father. Oh, it's very sad, and then dumps him in a hole, because it's kind of how you just get rid of bodies in Star Wars, is you throw them in a hole.
Yeah, they have a running reputation of that too. When a body dies, they either fall into a hole or the body disappears and it's just a pile of clothes.
Yeah.
That seems to be it.
Which I kind of get, because for story reasons, they don't really have time to go say, oh, go grab that dead body, bring it with us, we need to, give him proper burial. Just make him disappear. Throw him in a hole. Who cares?
Right.
So, Starkiller Place is blown up in a very similar fashion to the first two Death Stars, because apparently in 30 years, no one has thought of the idea of cover the hole. I mean, even put like a little tent over it. I don't know.
But alas, it is time for us to talk about The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, which takes place not in a time jump like all the other movies, but immediately after the end of The Force Awakens. Starkiller Base has just been blown up, and now the Resistance, because it's not the Rebellion anymore, it's the Resistance, is fleeing from the oncoming First Order. And the First Order has a fancy big ship that can track people through hyperspace. So the Resistance can't stop for too long, or they'll get caught, so they have to keep jumping, but they're running low on fuel. It's all very tense. Meanwhile, Rey has gone off to go find Luke Skywalker, and she found him. He's an old hobo living on an island.
He drinks green milk.
He drinks green milk. She finds him. She gives him his lightsaber. He throws it off a cliff.
Yep. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be a Jedi anymore, because we finally get a flashback later on in the film to where he trained Jedi and he also trained Kylo Ren, but then he sensed the dark side of the Force, so he almost did what his dad did and killed a child, but the child actually this time survived, ran away, and became the new Darth Vader.
Yes. So eventually Lucas decided, you know what, screw the Jedi. What good have they ever actually done for the galaxy? They let Palpatine rise to power due to their arrogance. They sort of screwed everything up. You know what? Screw the Jedi. I'm going to go live on an island. Be a sad old man that drinks milk.
Yes. And hijinks ensues. The ships are constantly flying away. We get a random casino scene.
Let's not worry about that.
Yeah, Rey trains with Luke until she has a good grasp of the Force, and then we get close to the climax of the film.
Mm-hmm. I will admit there is a lot of filler in the middle of this movie. As much as I like it, there is a lot of filler.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually Rey decides, you know what, my friend's in trouble. I need to go help them. So she goes off and gets captured on the big ship by Kylo Ren. And Kylo Ren takes her to see Snoke, who's like a big mutated Hugh Hefner. He's really a weird guy with his gold bathrobe and his creepy voice.
That is an interesting way to describe him.
Is it an accurate one, though?
That is the first time I have heard that description of General Snoke. A giant mutated Hugh Hefner.
I mean, it works. So, as she's brought before the new emperor, so powerful, created the entire First Order, taught Kylo Ren the ways of the dark side. He starts insulting Kylo Ren and making fun of him, and because that's somehow a good idea with this super powerful emo teen. So Kylo Ren kills him, and after they kill all his bodyguards, who put up more of a fight than the evil Emperor himself, which, again, kind of odd choice, but you know what, let's go with it. He tries to convince Rey to, join him, and not in the Jedi or the Sith, but as this new sort of neutral evil empire that wants to take over the universe. So Rey says no, and they blow up Luke's lightsaber, and she escapes. So then they have pretty much an exact recreation of the Hoth scene, except this time it's metal gorillas. Not metal camels, metal gorillas.
Yes, and instead of being on a snowy planet like with Hoth, we are now on this planet with red sand, but doesn't look like red sand until it gets messed with.
it's salt. It's, so it's completely white and crystalline on top, but if you disturb it, it's red underneath, because that's how salt works, I guess.
They try to go for the visuals.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so pretty much exact recreation of Hoth, except Luke shows up at the last minute and has a duel with Kylo Ren.
Is it really a duel?
Did
really anything happen?
No, because it turns out it wasn't actually Luke. It was a force projection that Kylo Ren somehow didn't notice was not an actual person, despite
being a Skywalker.
Okay, again, I like this movie, but there are a lot of weird choices with it. So the rebels manage to escape. Rey takes the tomes that Luke tried to set on fire that tell the history of the Jedi. Also, Yoda showed up at one point, but was of little consequence in the end, because he tried to blow up some books with lightning, but Rey saved them.
Yeah. And that is it.
Also, Luke's dead.
And Luke's dead, but we hear his voice, so he might not be dead.
He might be a Force ghost.
He might be a Force ghost, like Old Man Kenobi.
Yes. So that is our really, really bad recap of the Star Wars. What do you even call it at this point?
The Skywalker Saga.
Yeah, the Skywalker Saga.
Now, of course, I know some of you might be a little bit upset in our telling of the Skywalker timeline, as most timelines revolving the Skywalkers are very serious and very detailed, but when you look at it from somebody's perspective who had never watched the films before, the Skywalkers are just really, really, really bad people.
In one sentence, Magic Baby's born. Magic Baby destroys everything. Magic Baby's kids fix everything. Magic Baby grandkids destroy everything again. Basically, the Skywalkers are a plague on this galaxy. They ruin everything.
Yeah, they seem to be like this... and it sucks, too, because while also being really bad, the Skywalkers are also very lovable characters. Mm-hmm. You really can't help but love Luke Skywalker when he's trying his best to save the galaxy from the Empire. Mm-hmm. As whiny as Anakin Skywalker was in the prequel trilogies, you also still couldn't help but feel at least the slightest little bit bad for him for his eventual transition over to the dark side. If anything, from the aspect that this guy was supposed to be the chosen one to save the galaxy, and he ended up being the exact opposite.
Actually, I'd argue that he did. He was supposed to restore balance. He did do that for a while, because if you look at it, there were 2 Sith, there were thousands of Jedi, and Order 66 brought it down to more equal numbers. I mean, there were still more Jedi than there were Sith, but he did help restore balance to the Force. A lot of people keep looking at balance to the Force as there being no Sith and only Jedi, light side winning, but that's not what balance is. And I'd argue, in the end, Anakin Skywalker achieved his goal before he killed all the Sith and ruined everything again. Because that's what he does. He ruins everything.
Yeah, I have to admit that. But it is... as much as some people are not looking forward to the saga to end, I'm honestly excited for the Skywalker saga to finally reach its conclusion. Because honestly... the reason why The Last Jedi was so different and that it received such mixed reception was that it was trying its best to kind of peel itself away from what every other Star Wars movie has had to follow up to. Because considering how popular it is, how large the fan base is for Star Wars, it feels like you don't really have the chance to do anything different than what is shown in every single other Star Wars film. Rogue One, in my opinion, was like the first time in a good minute where we finally got something that wasn't focused on the Skywalkers. The Clone Saga animated series was fun, but even that always focused on original characters we had seen before in the past. Rogue One was like the first time we finally got something different. And it showed that the Star Wars saga, the series in itself, has so much more potential aside from just what's going on with the Skywalkers and the whole thing between Jedi and Sith, Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that we finally get Episode 9. I'm glad that it's finally reaching its conclusion, and I cannot wait to see how epic this conclusion will be. There are going to be people to give criticisms, but people getting criticisms for every single Star Wars movie. Not all of us have been old enough to be around when the classic trilogy came out, but I'm even sure people who saw the classic trilogy had their issues with some movies when it came out, Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, we're already like 30 minutes past our usual time, but This is a special. We get away with these kind of things.
Yes.
But without further ado, it's time for us to wrap up the Star Wars special, the first annual Star Wars special of the Phone Booth. As always, my name is Edward Heitman, and joining me in the studio is my good friend and co-host Brian Rodriguez.
See ya.
As always, tune in every Saturday morning from 1 to 2 to hear everything we have to say about movies, video games, TV shows, comic books, you name it. We do our very best to cover it. Now, without further ado, I hope that you all have a very wonderful afternoon, and may the Force be with you.